So we're going to start today just kind of looking at some of the things that are happening in the marketplace. It seems that NFT sales have increased 8 times, over this last quarter, and it doesn't almost seem like the NFT marketplace is what it was a quarter ago. We seem to be traveling the speed of light in all different directions for all forms of media and for different types of industries. So, do you guys want to kind of address a little bit what you see is happening in the space and why do you think this is going on?
Well, the first thing I would like to address is the lot of additional services that are being discovered around the business of NFTs. If we see the news about Visa acquiring the NFT, you see in the news that there was a crypto asset custodian involved, and that there are a lot of additional services that we haven't thought about before. So that's also an interesting angle to consider.
I think that's true, and I think that we keep seeing new and interesting approaches for NFTs, and we're seeing new ways that they are moving beyond just collectibles, and also creating membership and a sense of belonging. And I think that is this innovation in this space is a key reason why it keeps growing and growing.
It's quite interesting to look at the numbers. Um, Basically, OpenSea's trading volume over the past 30 days was 1.22 billion. That's just insane. One can look at the entire collector's art market and see that these markets are now exceeding, the size of it. And I just wonder why this is happening so quickly.
Well, I think that there are positive reasons and potentially some negative reasons. I think there is the potential for using this kind of technology as a way to uh, erase the paper trail for money. And so I think that is a negative reason why it may be growing as fast as it is. But I also think it's the perfect storm of great new technology and sort of the pet rock trolls attractiveness of it, and the hardcore ways that artists are making money from it. I think it's all of those things together. And I think artists, I think of it as decentralized art. Instead of DeFi, I think of it as decentralized art, because art and all of these things had really been in the fists of, I would say, a number of gatekeepers, from galleries to critics to auction houses. And now we are in an unprecedented age of people creating art, and they have a way to sell their art and make money from it without having to go through these gatekeepers. And I think that's just opening up a lot of new opportunities. But it is really hard to just even, I was reading those numbers from the newsletter, and it's really hard to just even wrap your mind around how much money that is. So some of it I think is just mysterious. Some of it I don't know that we're ever going to know why it's that much money, but it is.
Well, it seems that some of it is due to these collections that are being sold, and I think Chris and I were having a discussion yesterday about the collection versus not selling a collection, and basically it's just a takeoff on the CryptoPunks, but you would think that the Board Ape Yacht Club and Pudgy Penguins would not do as well as CryptoPunks, but they're just going down that same road, where people are buying up these collections, obviously hoping that the collecting them would actually give them some uptake in the value and, a return on their investment in some ways. Some people are just buying them because they want to own sort of the piece of the history of this. What do you think is driving the purchases of these collections?
Well, I think that the yacht club in particular is an example of financial collecting entertainment, right? It's all of those things. It's a way to invest, it's a way to participate in something fun. I mean, there's entertainment in being a member of the yacht club and being in that sort of exclusive space. And then there's the collectability of it. So I think it's really a perfect trifecta of different motives in one tool. I think if you look at just belonging or just collecting or just investing, none of those things by themselves are that exciting. But when you can combine them together, I think that is part of what's making it hot. And I think it is the water cooler talk in a lot of places, at least where people are actually going to work and standing around a water cooler. I think that's the water cooler talk.
Or maybe the FOMO?
I think there is some real FOMO, right? Because they've seen some of their friends make huge amounts of money in a short space, and not really a lot of people are talking about the money they lost. So it looks like a slam dunk from the outside. So I think there is definitely a FOMO component to it.
And to build up on that idea, I read in a few days ago about having your mark or your trace in your blockchain space CV. So since you can identify your address if you are one of the early buyers of these very successful pieces, it also makes you more important. It's not the same to onboard the NFT movement in 5 years than to be able to say that you were one of the precursors of the trend.
And that's a really good point, Leah. I've been in innovation my whole career, dating myself back now. And it seemed that with each wave of innovation, it was important to be a first mover. But there's this, sort of a biography rundown in the crypto space where the first thing person says is like, I've been in the space since 2012, or I've been in the space since 2011. And why is that so important for crypto space? To have that sort of annotation that you were 1 year earlier than the person next to you.
Well, one thing is to let people know that you understand the basics, because if you go 8 years ago, there was a lot more that you needed to process and understand in order to become part of this. These days, management of these NFTs or other pieces is being incrementally made easier. Metis is one of the platforms that does that. But if you can credit that 8 years ago you were involved in this movement, well, that for me allows much more credibility than someone that just is beginning. Not judging on some newcomers that can be really bright people, but it is something to take on account. I certainly do respect someone that was adventurous and committed enough 8 years ago become part of this new technology and this NFT movement?
I think there is a sexiness in discovery as well, right? If you look at anything like finding the hot new band, finding the best new blog, finding the best new uh, feed to follow, if you get to be the one that tells everybody about it, then you get a certain amount of cool rubbing off on you from that. And I think that there is some of that driving this desire in this space. But I also think we have to look at the fact that you can get involved in this space without investing a tremendous amount of time or money at this point. So you can be part of the team without having tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest. And I think that too, like in art in the past, to be involved in collecting art was really the purview of rich people. And I think this is a democratization of showing appreciation for the arts.
It's so interesting, you know, just to look at the prestige of it all, right? Of owning these NFTs and, you know, kind of bragging about the fact that you were there first, if you'd like. But now there's some real economic reasons for this too. One of those reasons is the Axie Infinity ecosystem. In our second article this week, we discuss, you know, how to think about the NFTs marketplace as a collector, investor, whether you're investing your cryptocurrencies or your time, you know, because your time is becoming the most important investment you can make in this space. So the Axie Affinity, their ecosystem recently surpassed 1 million active daily users, and they processed 1.37 billion in all-time volume. So this is a very interesting company because they are basically allowing people to play a game and earn revenue when they play a game. And I'm not aware of companies that are funding these players. You know, it costs money to get actually enter that system and get your game going. And in, you know, there's a huge adoption in Malaysia and Venezuela where the economic struggles are real. And so in trying to get your team to play the game, you really can't afford it. So there's a DAO that's being created that fund these players. There's a company apparently funded by Andreessen Horowitz that's doing this, and I know of some startups in Silicon Valley doing it as well. So what happens, you know, as the ROI, just to give you kind of a full coordinate system on the game, you know, since the government of Venezuela instituted a monthly income that is equivalent to about $2.40, and you know, a daily income of $23.70, which is an average on, you know, return on playing these games, you know, could feed a family or for up to 10 months, you know. So this is a huge amount of revenue that one can create in these games, and many people are creating them in these countries. So do you think this will continue to develop these ecosystems that are really like m- microeconomies inside, you know, some of the failing ones?
I absolutely think it's going to continue. And I think part of the reason it's going to continue is that customer acquisition and churn are such major problems with virtually every form of entertainment now. I think I read that Netflix on average spends $100 to acquire a new customer, and maybe they're only going to stay for 3 or 4 months. So when you look at it from the standpoint of not only are you doing social good with your product, but you're also onboarding massive numbers of users for relatively small amounts of money. And what is $2.40 compared to spending $100 to get a new customer? I think that we're going to see this continue in all forms of entertainment because really what we're competing for now is attention.
I totally agree, and also I find that there's a big opportunity with the gamification of these interactions into the blockchain space. I remember we spoke a few weeks before about the metaverse and how this profile of gamers are the people that is naturally more skilled to enter into this new dimension that the metaverse represents, and here everybody is allowed. You just need to want to be willing to try, and it's a very easy onboarding for all profiles of participants. So I find the experience very interesting and absolutely brilliant to try to merge the marketing aspect of acquiring clients or a target audience with the actual gaming experience.
Yeah,
Also, I
go
think
ahead.
if you sorry. Also, I think if you compare the costs of doing a traditional beta testing cycle with what they're paying these gamers, and presumably these gamers are being asked to report problems and bugs, it's also brilliant from that standpoint too, because all of those things, customer acquisition, getting a critical mass, being able to write a press release saying you have X thousand users, all of that costs money. And by paying micropayments to these gamers, I think it ultimately costs them much less than it would cost to do these things in a traditional way.
Yeah, I think it's amazing to have that kind of a um, economy has been applied to almost every blockchain protocol where the builders and maintainers of the system are earning tokens in that economy. And I think one of our presenters at the Salon last week, who has this atomic swap for NFTs inside games, which is just amazing. It happens instantaneously. And he's been in the gaming business his whole career. He was pointing out that gamers, were the original people who were buying pretty objects inside the gameplay and inside their entertainment. So this is just a very much an extension of that business model. So a lot of the discussion last week at the salon was also about the NFTs that can also be staked as collateral. These DeFi principles. Um, one can say they're token generating NFTs. Uh, Basically, you could collect certain NFTs, and once you collect them, you can stake them inside a protocol they're on, and they become your DeFi collateral to earn staking rewards. So they become, in essence, another asset that you own that can earn some form of interest. Do you guys feel that consumers are going to get completely confused with these concepts? Because NFTs are complicated enough, and then DeFi is complicated enough, but combining the two.
Well, the thing is that I don't perceive people staking NFTs worrying that much about understanding the accounting principles and when does a thing becomes an asset or things ideas like that. There's a lot of concepts, economical and accounting concepts behind deciding if something becomes an asset and you can and how to value that. That I don't perceive these users worrying as much about. And then there's the concept that when you stake, what you are actually doing is agreeing not to dispose of that asset during a certain period of time. and in most cases, when accepting to use it as a collateral, accepting that it could be used as a way of payment for an amount that you might owe due to this transaction. So I think people is assuming that it's all going to be properly structured, and they are not worrying that much about how it turns out if you actually have to pay with your collateral. And this brings a lot of interest into the quality of the smart contracts involved, the credibility of the platform you are working with when you decide to stake your assets, and how reputable the people involved in the structuring of the whole DeFi thing is considered. So there are a lot of important concepts to analyze there, and maybe people is making decisions in a haste just to be part of this, and a lot more of information needs to be issued and shared with users.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeanette.
I think the short answer is yes, people are confused and they're going to stay confused for a while. I think when you're looking at younger consumers, some of them can't balance a checkbook. So some of this is naturally going to be a little difficult for them to understand. And for people who are more financially sophisticated, they tend to know less about the tech. So I think that combination of financial sophistication and tech is going to struggle for a while.
So I'll give you a couple of examples. I'll start with this one. I mean, I think it's complicated, and I feel like I'm okay with financial concepts, but not necessarily with this one, these ones. So there's a mixing of DeFi with gameplay and NFTs in something called Aave Gochi, which is a platform built on Aave protocol that enables in-game avatars to be combined with other cryptocurrency assets. And then these can be used as DeFi collateral and earn staking rewards. So Aave Gochi avatars is Gochi, and they're scarce in numbers, and are minted only in a limited number, of times per year. They're released via auction or raffle drawing. And so users who stake the native GHS, so Ghost token, on the protocol earn rewards in the form of friends, FRENS. So this is like three different names you have to remember, which can then be used to purchase raffle tickets. I mean, this gets more interesting, that are entered in a drawing for in-game items such as wearables, consumables, or Gochi summoning portals, right? So you literally have two different tokens. You have an NFT avatars. You have different forms of auctioning or drawing going on. Then you have staking. Then you have mixing of DeFi with NFTs. And so, I mean, I can tell you then what the point of the game is, but it gets quite complicated, right? So all of these ghost tokens and friends can be combined with gochis to increase the rarity and value.
So and this is why I think gaming and NFTs and crypto are such fabulous partners, right? Because the relationship between a gamer and a game is typically very different from the relationship of a viewer to a show that they like. A viewer might watch their show once a week for an hour at a time. Maybe they'll spend an hour or two a week learning more about that show. They're not spending 10, 12, 14 hours a day interacting with that piece of entertainment. Whereas serious gamers spend a lot of time in that space, and they also spend money to be good in that space, to win in that space. And there, if we look at the movement of esports, they also stand to win a lot of money if they get particularly good at it. But for these kinds of super gamers, this is not an activity they do once in a while for fun. This is like their life. And so these kinds of super committed super fans are ideal early adopters for these complex setups. The game has so much of their time and their attention that they can eke out these little bits of learning over time, because those people who spend 8 hours a day playing this game will do anything to get ahead in the game. So I think that's why this is such a great combo.
Absolutely. And also, they are perfectly comfortable in risky, uncertain environments. That's natural for them. So, everything we perceive, we normal people, non gamers, or at least me, we perceive as complex and challenging, it's what they live for. So that's why I find so wonderful the mixing of gamers with these new transactions, because for them is kind of natural.
And what they're sort of able to do is what, in traditional financial markets, you completely can't ever possibly even imagine doing. And even in the crypto markets, people have been slapped, for saying things, for trying to say that a token will increase in value. So with these gochis, this is what they're promoting. The ability to lock up other tokens or assets into a gochi adds another layer of value and rarity to each avatar. To extract any added assets, gochis are destroyed in the process, leading to an increase in scarcity. So it's like all about creation of value, creation of value, creation of value. And at the time of when the article was published, there were 7,760 portals that have been opened, and 432 gochis have been sacrificed, according to the Avigochi stats. This way, limiting the supply of having only 7,328 gochis left, with varying traits and levels of rarity, and therefore again showing an increase in the value of whatever this thing is. Not a security, not not necessarily defined, point, but it almost takes what centralized finance was worried about with decentralized finance and takes it to such a level of intensity that there's like no looking back. That's what I'm perceiving. What do you guys think?
I think that's true. And I think this is also partially coming out of the younger groups, the millennials, the Gen Zers, and so forth, are less interested in things. So they're not as likely to show their status with a big expensive car, or with they may show off some fabulous sneakers, but again, in that case, it's much more about the rarity value than the price. And so I think we're seeing a lot of younger people flashing their status this way. So I think the whole market of attack how to get young people to spend money is different, because they spend their money in different ways.
And some of the ways they're spending money, there's a third project they were discussing called Illuvium, which is an open world fantasy battle game built on Ethereum itself. Um, One of the catalysts is for its price rising is the introduction of the ILV, that's the token associated with the game, staking, which enables token holders to earn a yield ranging from 43 to 87%, depending on the length of time tokens are locked up. This is the yield that they're going to give you. Like that's what they're telling you up front when you stake these tokens. And they combine this asset staking with flash pools that allows Axie Infinity and Synthetics, which is another huge DeFi protocol. Those holders a chance to earn ILV by staking their tokens on the protocol. So all of a sudden they're not just building a community by offering you 43 to 87% on your staking, but additionally, they're allowing that Axie Infinity community that's already over 1 million users, and people are, making a living off of it in a variety of countries. And Synthetics, which is one of the top DeFi protocols, locked in. So another million or more users to earn these ILV tokens, which kind of supercharges the launch of it. Do you foresee these sort of co-marketing deals happening in the space, again adding just quite a bit of more noise to it?
I think traditional forms of investment start looking pretty pale compared to some of the options that we're looking at here. And of course, many of these profiles are higher risk, but I think that younger investors in particular are going to use this to be the risky part of their portfolio. I don't see a lot of people putting every penny they have in the world into the space necessarily. But if you're looking at a traditional stock portfolio, you always have sort of your blue chip base, and then you have your higher risk stocks that you're looking for a greater risk, a greater rate of return. And I think we're likely to see that happening. But I also think that we're going to start seeing partnerships of all different kinds. And one area that I think is going to be huge is partnering traditional brands into these spaces, because traditional brands are having a hard time rising above the noise right now. So I see that as being a space that a lot in the near future.
And as we review some of these, up and coming NFT slash DeFi hybrids, right, which are infiltrating the gaming space, it's really interesting to see. You're right, Jeanette. It just the numbers compared to anything you can do in a traditional, with traditional finance products is just very different. It's almost like it is in a different universe. It's in a metaverse. And there's a real movement of traditional companies into the space. So large companies like Fidelity, moving into the space in a bigger way. Visa, not only trying to create incentives and programs and partnering with everyone using crypto, but now buying NFTs. Would some of the traditional brands even be able not to participate this year in NFTs and DeFi and/or DeFi? Yeah, I would personally be shocked.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to participate in some way. They're going to either have to participate, and if you're talking enterprise brands, like, are you talking just about financial brands or all brands?
All brands and really consumer focused brands, because this is now a consumer play.
I think consumer brands are going to have to participate in this universe in some way. It may not necessarily be an NFT. It may be a gaming play, it may be an avatar play, it may be an NFT play, but I think I just saw this morning a huge article that came out on the National Association of Broadcasters page all about the metaverse. Okay, so you've hit mainstream when the broadcasting guys, start talking. When the cigar chomping broadcasters start talking about the metaverse, you've hit pretty mainstream. So I think in one of those areas, most brands are going to need to have a play in order to stay relevant, but not necessarily all of those areas.
Well, I think that many of the traditional brands still need to keep a connection with real world where we are consumers, but we have already seen, you know, the rare Coca-Cola bottle in the metaverse and things like that. So you will want to somehow advertise your real world products in this metaverse, because if it is there that your consumers are, as you said, spending more than 8 hours a day, well, that's where you should be to make yourself noticeable.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting, going forward to kind of understand. If you had Christian here today, he would talk about the ways that NFTs are going to be used on the supply chain side and just kind of organizing our world, if you'd like. But I feel that in the area of any sort of a consumer promotion, engagement, aggregation, and then retention of the users, NFTs will be used to enhance all forms of marketing. I feel that they will be enhanced to start to enhance all forms of e-commerce that's going to consumers sort of on the front end. And of course, I think we've been discussing this since we started the Clubhouse. Every area of entertainment it has been affected and will continue to be affected by the NFTs and DeFi.
I think so, Mariana. And I think another component of this that makes it a no brainer for these brands is to attach social good as well. Because if people invest in an NFT and they lose money, but the money they invested goes to something powerful and productive and useful, they're pretty comfortable with the risks. So I think that is a lot of the idea behind Taco Bell's non-fungible tacos that they did. All of the money that they raised from that NFT went to EMAS, which is their scholarship program for young people. So in that case, it wasn't so much invest with us and you'll make $1 billion. It was invest with us, and the worst that'll happen is you'll help some kid go to school that really needs help. So I think when you pair social good with it, it's really a win-win situation.
Absolutely. And then there's the fact that NFTs can be a powerful tool for community building, because once you have the NFT holders, you can airdrop to them some rewards, or you can create all sort of participative events that will be much harder to organize if you had to go and look for or actively require your target audience to come back to you.
Yeah, you're right. So all sorts of live events, which sort of have been hugely affected by the pandemic, unfortunately. But you can see how the NFTs are, definitely going to be key in that market to kind of allocate or connect live experiences that may have not existed in the past with the events through ticket purchases, things that are giveaways, things that were gifts as you leave the event to remember it and come back next year. With repeatable things to do and or engage with the event while event is only on for a certain period of time. It's just endless way, I would say, of engagement one could think through for the event side of the business.
Not to mention that with the death of cookies, it's harder to track your customers, right? So giving them a physical object is a one-way street. If I if I give everybody that comes to the Dodger Stadium today a bobblehead, they get that, they put it on their desk, but I don't know their address, I don't know who they are, and I don't have a way to continue to interact with them through that bobblehead. But if I give them a bobblehead NFT, there is presumably a way that I can stay attached to that customer, which is, I think, a big deal for marketers right now.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have on all the platforms I've ever launched, we had user acquisition and user retention as marketing functions, and user acquisition was very expensive, as you pointed out, Jeanette, in terms of like even a Netflix user acquisition being expensive at $100 a user. Um, and then user retention is even more challenging for something that happens once a year or once a quarter, you know, an event. Getting users engaged and retained is, you know, not really solvable in really good ways right now. We've been in the business of organizing Zoom events and virtual events since April of 2020 due to the pandemic, and we see different kind of responses to our events. Sometimes we have, you know, quite a few people show up, others we don't. We use every form of social media. We have a Telegram channel, YouTube channel, you know, and every form of social media has a different audience, and it's not connected, and it's like this sort of a very challenging way of reaching your audience, and getting your audience from LinkedIn to Clubhouse is hard, or from, you know, Facebook to Clubhouse to Instagram and vice versa. With NFTs, I feel that some of these social media companies will have a real challenge and real competition in user aggregation, user retention, and user engagement in ways that they're not even doing or thinking through at the moment.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that the opportunity is much larger, but the complexity is also much higher. So I think there's going to be a lot of companies leaping in the next 4 or 5 months, claiming to be experts in this space. But if I were a brand, I would want to check very carefully to see what they've done and how much they actually know about the space. You know, it's great to create a user story, but this is a lot more than throwing an ad in a magazine. This is much more complex.
Complex, but like you went through this really interesting discussion yesterday and in our other you know, Tuesday morning 10 a.m. session, where we let people ask us any questions, and you went through literally all the different ways that one can market NFTs. And I thought about it. um, you know, you started with, you know, marketing of your book, which was published, you know, many years back, and how hard that was, and then marketing other products and services and platforms you developed over the years, and then using all the different social media tools that are available, from telegrams to, you know, to Instagrams and clubhouses, etc. But don't you think you can somewhat reproduce most of those experiences with NFTs if you set up a system in a way that you manage it, and you can do a variety of functions with your users?
Oh, absolutely. I guess I was saying if I'm an ad agency, right, and I'm used to developing magazine ads and maybe banner ad systems or games on the internet, I'm not necessarily going to know what I need to know to make a brand sponsored NFT really work. So, as an individual artist, I think NFTs give me an unprecedented ability to access an audience. But if I'm, you know, Frito Lay and I'm trying to come up with an NFT play, I want to make sure that my ad agency really knows what they're doing in that space so that I have a chance of it being successful. And I think that those users who are pushing a lot in this space are not so forgiving of sort of half assed NFT projects. So I think as a brand, I would be very careful to partner with somebody who I felt confident could get it right.
You're immensely right, because not all NFTs are created equal, and that's why I was um, driving attention on how those smart contracts are created, audited, and structured. Because a sad thing will be to have a lot of people holding your NFT, but not having that NFT enabled to receive some of the airdrops or things like that. So there's a technical complexity, and there's also this marketing intelligence that you are pointing out that have to converge to create a really useful marketing tool out of an NFT.
Because really, what you could do if you combine the supply chain management that Christian's talking about and all the different marketing opportunities or things you have to think through that Leah and Jeanette have talked about, you could create issuing of specific NFTs that are relating to your brand, that will allow you to aggregate users and then to keep them engaged as both users and ambassadors of your brand, and then have them aggregate the audiences for you, again using the NFTs. So this is really just like the NFTs allow for the next generation of collecting, and they allow for the next generation of in-game gameplay, if you'd like. They also will allow for the next generation of ambassador and influencer marketing, which I don't think anyone is really fully exploring at the moment.
I absolutely agree. And I think it's going to create the next generation of appreciation for the creators of things, right? So I can anticipate a future where I can use an NFT to figure out who grew my coffee, or who made my, where the wood for this piece of furniture came from, or who finished my car for me. And I think that as resources become more of an issue, and as climate change and ecology becomes a big issue, I think combining supply chain issues with making your suppliers part stars or celebrities for your product could be a really interesting way to differentiate a product going forward.
Yes, that's the beauty of the smart contract. Everything gets recorded and it's embedded in it. So even if the guy who created your piece was not very famous when you acquired it, if he becomes a huge star in the future, and he participated in the making of your NFT, well, yours will increase in scarcity or rarity or price.
Yeah, we were working on a project with Kudelski. Scott's not here today, um, called Aliceta Health, and it's a supply chain management platform on blockchain that would track consumer usage of cannabis products and variety of these, medical tests related to COVID, etc. And it would allow the user to scan the QR code on their product and then give feedback to the supply chain management system they created about how they perceived the product, how useful it was, et cetera, et cetera. We were doing this with QR codes and the blockchain supply chain management system. You can see how easily this could be converted to an NFT supply chain management project, and then having people who actually participate, consumers that are providing feedback. Is this cannabis product actually helping me not have pain in my left arm, or swelling on my knee, or did the cream really work, etc. You can see how that could create a program where people become ambassadors of the whole system and all of the products in the system, and they become more passionate about it. I feel like the e-commerce is just starting to kind of gain traction with these opportunities.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're seeing such an explosion right now is because people are hungry for connection and they're hungry for community. And I think the pandemic fundamentally changed the way that we interact with each other, and it left a hole that needed to be filled. And I think these forms of community are some of the ways that need is being addressed. So I think it was a perfect storm of a lot of different elements, including the pandemic, that has fueled this rocket ship we've been watching uh, fly off into space.
And that will be, in the case of your consumer example, honest reviews by real users. So you are removing the question about how were these numbers obtained, because they will have the certainty that these are actual users, not people that was looked for a short while, but you can go back and check if these people that are given feedback are actual long-term users of medicine or whatever. So it's invaluable information that you are being able to gather through these alternatives.
And I think users would be compelled to participate if you give them rewards that are, tied to NFTs, maybe I would call these this is my name for them, evergreen NFTs, where the value of the NFT kind of grows with the participation. I feel that's what's coming for e-commerce and consumer tracking in general. Uh,
Sure, because though there will be a dynamic relationship between the product and the consumer, and it will be based on this NFT interaction that you can enable.
And it seems a lot more attractive than entering my name in a lottery of an X participants to win a $25 gift card, right? That's mostly how those incentives are done now.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting. We were attending, I think, an NFT event this week. It's like, I think, called Web 3.0 Fashion. It was really well done here in Los Angeles, but it's virtual. And I thought that they had so many different rewards and giveaways for the participants in their sessions. It was so much more interesting than anything that was being done currently with online conferences, as Jeanette points out, for, an Amazon gift card or some sort of a coffee gift card with Starbucks. I think it was just so much more going on in terms of staking coins, getting NFTs, staking NFTs. There's just so many ways that one can reward users and keep them engaged inside the reward system. This is the key differentiating point between old economy and what we're seeing being developed, that it's much easier to keep everyone participating in that economy engaged once they're in it. And I think that's the major secret sauce of the rocket ship you guys are describing.
And still the consumer feels in control because they can choose if when they participate, when they don't, and they can come back if they change their minds. So they don't feel as used as sometimes you feel with some of these kind of giveaways.
Yeah, no one really feels used in this economy. In essence, people are spending more time on investing, more time, money, and energy all around is expanded on investing into tokens, DeFi protocols, um, games that are being played, the metaverse, the creation of NFTs, the creation of experiences in a metaverse, than ever before. And everybody feels actually accomplished doing these things and feels like they're part of something bigger versus, I just wasted my time on Instagram, or I just wasted my time on Facebook. So it's kind of turned that whole economy around, I think. And if you'd like to hear a little bit more about some other innovative companies in the NFTs, DeFi, and DAO space, we hold presentations by the CEOs of these companies, heads of innovation of Fortune 500 companies, and investors in the space. We do 4 presentations every Wednesday in our virtual Infiom Salon. If you go to infiom.com, you can easily find our salons, and they're free. You can sign up on Eventbrite. We also disseminate a weekly newsletter you can get on our website. This you can subscribe to it. It's also free. And then our clubhouse discussions have been now we've developed 2 of them. This is one where we talk about venture initiation and sort of this kind of positioning of these type of ventures in different industries and in different spaces. And then on Tuesday, we try to go through the actual project management and project financing issues with NFTs and DeFi for creative projects, including film, television, music, and games and other creative type endeavors. And we usually have that one moderated by Jeanette, but also anybody can come in and ask a question in any of our salons, in any of our discussions. Please join us and do that next week. I want to thank our presenters, and I want to thank our audience for participating with us today. And we keep these discussions to 1 hour every week. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mariana. Thank you, Leah.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.